the band's name, TTNG. For me, it's just like this town needs guitars. Um, Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Audiophiles, you bugger. My name's John. His name is Andy. I pictured a rainbow. You held it in your hands. I had flashes, but you saw a plan. Well, that later. But first, what have we got to listen to today, Andy?
Well, I'd like you to check out a band that is more commonly and recently known as TTNG. They were formerly known as This Town Needs Guns. And I'm wondering if you have ever heard of this band before.
I don't think so.
Okay, fair enough. Well, the track by them that I'd like you to check out is called If I Sit Still, Maybe I'll Get Out of Here. And it is a live performance. Back to Audiotree we go. So please give this thing a spin, a watch, a listen, and then come back and let us all know what you made of it.
Okay, we'll do. Okay, really nice start. I think there's three of them, which is we've talked about the power of the three-piece before, but usually in a sort of like garage rock setting, and there's a couple of notable two pieces that have made their mark. But for sort of math rock, post rock, whatever you want to call it, sound, usually intricate. And to have three of them, just three doing it, that's really this is a great sound straight away. So your man there's got his capo firmly in place, and he's doing obviously finger picking and tapping at the same time. It always, to me, looks a little bit kind of awkward, but clearly it isn't. Just for someone who's a guitar player, there's a lovely, rich, beautiful tone to his guitar as well. It kind of reminds me in a way of Duritty Column, Vinnie Riley, that mainstay of Factory Records from the film 24 Hour Party People. That's funny. But yeah, there's that sort of neoclassical feel to it in a way. It has this beautiful sort of notes raining down intricately. Yeah, really nice. Beautiful tone to it as well. And the drummer, from what we've seen so far, has got that jazzy feel to it, which I think a lot of really decent math rock, post rock bands, they always have a really good drummer that's sort of well versed in jazz drumming, and it seems to hold everything together really well, but have that fluidity as well. And then your man singing with the bass as well. And his voice has got like a touch of strain to it, almost like he's reaching up, which adds to an air of earnestness as well. And he said something about, so sorry for the things I've done, and what I did to you is up there, number one. So that all bodes well. Let's see how it progresses.
buttons and pens, this mess wherein dissolves in time.
Pull that back a sec. Yesteryear still rings in my ear like buttons and pins. This mess we're in dissolves in time, so there's a sense of nostalgia about that as well. But it's really pretty there with the drums and the bass dropping out, so just that picked guitar and his voice, which I have to say at the start was okay, but it's really growing on me with this sound. It's not normally a voice that I would really sort of latch onto, but there's something about it within this setting that it sounds so right. There's a bit just before that where they're playing and you could hear the bass driving through, and we're thinking, how the hell is he singing these vocal melodies and playing that bass at the same time? As a non-musician, that strikes me as being super complex to be able to do those two things at once when they're different within this setting. Yeah, it's impressive. It's probably picked up there. So it's a piece of piss. Fair enough. Then your drummer man's coming back in with the fill to set us on our way again. But just really pretty that was. Really, really pretty.
This mess wherein dissolves in time. I know time is quite different from when
Totally different time of signature.
take home, there's still another one make this young man laugh. All at once was is not gone yet. We are all friends, you and I. Many a time sat silent by my side. This dares to be our last goodbye. Take with me a part of you never die. Yesteryear still rings in my ear like buttons and pens. This mess wherein dissolves in time. Yesteryear still rings in my hair like buttons and pens. This mess wherein dissolves in time.
Really like that. Yeah, so there's twice they've done that. Those same things about the yesteryear buttons and pins. Don't really understand this snippets of buttons and pins, but this is clearly the sort of reflective part of his talking about relationship. I didn't really, it's tough to catch the stuff in between, but this is just pausing for thought within the sort of activity of the song. Yeah, and there's a fragility to his voice there, which is imperfect, but actually it adds to the quality of the whole thing rather than some sort of in the studio perfection, which I really like. And then we get this cascade of notes coming down as well as the drummer fills back in. It's all working so well together. It sounds great.
Time is quite different from when we first met. Years haven't been kind, worn down my regrets. Take home, there's still another one made this young man laugh. All that once was is not
Love those high floating notes. sounds lovely there.
Right now, time is quite different from when we first met. Years haven't been kind, won't out my regrets. So take hope, there's still enough of what made this young man left. All that once was is not quite gone yet.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Audiotree Live with TTNG. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
And that was really, it felt like a complete encapsulated moment, the whole thing. Yeah, it's really nice, really skillful as well, playing it live. Yeah, I'm really impressed. I thought it was great. And the way it sort of grew from that instrumental sort of around the 5-minute mark was just lovely. That final flourish, the vocals, which definitely grew on me from the start. I think they really fit it well. Yeah, this was great. All three of them. The bass was driving towards the end. I could really hear it. It sounded wonderful as well. So yeah, I need to hear more of these guys and learn more about them as well. To do that, let's go back and chop it up with Andy.
All right, John. So it would appear that you sat still long enough because you made it out of there. What did you make of this track by TTNG?
Yeah, I'd say first of all, the title, the band's name, TTNG. For me, it's just like this town needs guitars. And then the song title as well. If I sit still, maybe I'll get out of here. Again, makes me think of a very American pastime of mass shootings.
Yeah.
This doesn't really, from the song, give that effect to me, but who knows? So starts off with a really clear tone from the guitar, welcomes us into the studio. I've now got into my head those opening notes are not the title of Audiotree theme. So yeah, and I believe from looking at it, this is a 3-piece that confronts us. Now, with a classic garage rock sound, we've commented on many times before on the power of a 3-piece. Indeed, there are a number of very well-known 2-piece bands that have an awesome sound.
Yeah.
But for this genre, math rock, post rock, whatever you want to say it, is usually associated with, technical whiz bang and intricacies. And it's something to produce this sound with just 3 members.
Yeah.
So yeah, really interesting, well done. And overall, this is a fantastic live performance. And as we have mentioned many times with KXP, but also with Audiotree, fantastic sounding, we put on a really good show, just, seal of quality and all that stuff. So your man on guitar has his capo firmly fixed, and he's finger picking and tapping away like a good one. Obviously, this is both hands producing notes at the same time. I think I said the reaction, for me as a non-guitarist, it looks incredibly awkward, but I'm sure it isn't. Otherwise, people wouldn't do it. But it does produce this wonderful cascade of sound and notes. Yeah, so it does create this shimmering atmosphere to the sound, and I'm reminded a bit of the Durutti column. There are bands and the works, particularly there's one guy really called Vinnie Riley, who is a stalwart of factory records, and he has this mixture of jazz, folk, and sort of neoclassical styles that produce something similar to this guitar sound on many occasions. And it seemingly plugged away, producing album after album after album that only Tony Wilson, who was the boss of Factory Records, really enjoyed. And he cuts quite a funny figure in the film 24 Hour Party People. Yeah, bless him. So yeah, just put me in mind of that. It was really nice. The drummer as well has this really fluid jazz style that holds everything together. And I've always said any sort of decent post rock or math rock band usually has an exceptional drummer, and this is the case here as well. The bassist and singer begins with so sorry for the things I've done, and what I did to you is up there, number one. Interesting opening gambit. So I'm sure this is going to have a happy ending. His voice has a touch of strain to it, which kind of leads or lends an air of earnestness about it. And actually, as he approaches, quite often he's looking upwards as well, which again has a very strange effect on his delivery. I have to admit, at the start, I didn't dislike it, but I wasn't, could be bowled over by his voice. But actually, it grew on me throughout the track, so I really enjoyed it by the end. So the band jam on a motif and they're kind of circling before they switch to a different time signature and they drop down to just the vocals and the guitar. So they do a couple of times in this song. Yesteryear still rings in my ear. Like buttons and pins, this mess we're in dissolves in time. And he repeats this again before we launch into the next section. So a couple of things spring to mind because this happens again. And it's almost like throughout this sort of this song is churning and moving away and changing steps and directions. And yet these sections where they drop down to just him, the guitar, it's very clear and almost crystalline with this particular chorus, whatever you want to call it, refrain, which I think emphasizes the importance of it because it's the thing that's really, it's almost like it's highlighted in yellow marker. There's a feeling of nostalgia from this, yesteryear and all that sort of stuff. I have not a clue what the relevance of buttons and pins are. But yeah, it kind of scans nicely. And again, it's dissolving in time. So I guess it's all about relationship and whatever's going on. The other thing I'm really wondering here, which we heard at the beginning as well, and not so much in this part, but as he launches into the next bit, is I'm wondering how the hell the singer singing a vocal melody while delivering a counter melody on the bass is completely different. Now, as a non-musician, it just seems incredibly complex to me. People doing it would probably say it's a piece of piss. Good luck to them. But I would say it looks like, fairly amazing. So he then goes into the next verse, which I find it difficult to catch the words, but he leans to this really high note before the drummer sort of populates the space in between verses with a very satisfying fill. And then we get another verse, and the buttons and pins section comes back for another couple of spins around the track. It almost seems like time pauses as he sings the Messerine quite beautifully. And it's a very beautiful moment with his graceful notes just falling from the guitar as well. You get a quick frap from the drums, which leads the band back into another section. As the words, I think this is gone yet, float from his upturned face, we transition into another section as well. And here they kind of jam. And this is the prettiest guitar section. He starts playing sort of almost, I would say, normally, as in the hand of the fretboard is shaping chords, so he's playing. And then he starts finger picking, so he's playing almost two motifs at once. And the drummer picks up on one of the guitar and uses that for his timing. And it's just an incredibly satisfying transition yet again. And then they move forward with the bass in tow and launch into this really vibrant rhythm. And during this, the guitar just grows, blossoms, developing the theme to something really resplendent. And that was my favorite bit of the song. It was just it was fascinating, and the smoothness of transitions and the way that the band were working together. I didn't really concentrate it, but again, the bass came back. It was quite forward at certain points, and there it was really strong as well, leading in, and again had a lovely sound to it. Um, to seal the transition, came the vocals with a spirited last verse. He was really belting out the last of the final words to finish on this, crescendo. And I say at that point, although not getting everything, I really liked the way his voice fitted to it. I wasn't convinced at the start, but at the end of it, I was definitely a fan of it. And then the band sort of wind up to finish. I kind of let a lot of this wash over me, if I'm honest with you. I just found it fascinating, and as a experience, we've had these sort of bands before. This almost felt like one of those post-rock I gave you. I think this sounds silly to say, but almost like a stripped down or almost acoustic version of it. It wasn't loads of layers of guitars and these crescendos and keys coming in. It was almost a more distilled version of those sort of songs. And of course, the songs I gave you usually are instrumental. So having the vocals there as well, it almost felt like another instrument to me rather than a narration of sorts or whatever. But I really, really enjoyed this. I thought this was sublime.
Awesome.
And,
I'm really,
and
really glad.
the tone of his guitar, especially,
yes, so
was just wonderful. And again, because of that, it was unadulterated. Really, I don't know what effects he'd have on it, but it sounds like it could come straight from sort of like Alpine glacial water or something. It was pure, rather than all the lovely fuzziness that we enjoy as much. So these factors gave it a different, almost unique quality to it.
Yeah.
So I think it was great.
You're right. There is this unadulterated beauty to the guitar in this track. It is fucking gorgeous. And honestly, when we were talking about, and I'm not trying to compare them in any way. I'm just trying to, when we listened to Angine de Poitrine and we saw the finger tapping going on, one of the first things that came to mind was this song because of the finger tapping involved here. And I'm not one that is bowled over by the fact that someone can finger tap. We've heard it plenty of times, said that before, but this is a really pretty example of it, I think. And
it's to what end you're doing it for.
Yeah. Really glad you liked it. Let me get into the band and tell you a bit more about them. TTNG, formerly known as This Town Needs Guns, are a British math rock band from Oxford, formed in 2002. So, some thinking, gentlemen. Following numerous departures, the band went from being a four-piece to, as you were quick to point out, a trio, featuring Henry Tremaine on bass and lead vocals, Tim Collis on guitar, and his brother Chris Collis on drums. Over the years, the band's musical style has progressed and changed, although the consistent focal point of their style has been the guitar work of Tim Collis, interspersed with, at points, highly complex drumming and sparse melodic bass. Early releases, however, featured more distorted chord progressions, as well as a strong focus on the interlinking melodies of both Collis and former bandmate and co-vocalist Stuart Smith's guitars. The Sydney Morning Herald described the band's music as having intricate pop guitar work with a touch of jazz and Spanish influences. The band is largely inspired by Chicago bands Ghosts and Vodka, Maps and Atlases, Owen, Owls, Russian Circles, Them Roaring Twenties, Anathalo, Colossal, Birthmark, American Football, Joan of Arc, and Make Believe, as well as the British bands Andy, Glenn, and Rich, The Little Explorer, and the Jesus Years. They have been cited as an influence by Yvette Young. Their debut full-length album, Animals, was released in the UK via Big Scary Monsters Recording Company in October of 2008, and shortly after in the US via Sargent House Records. They have released 4 studio albums as well as numerous EPs and singles. The band is currently signed to the American label Sargent House Records. The band formed in 2002 in Oxford, as mentioned before, and the original lineup consisted of Stuart Smith on rhythm guitar and vocals, Tim Collis on lead guitar, Simon Thompson on drums, and Ian Lewis on bass. The Thompson and Lewis left the band in 2005 to be replaced by Dan Adams on bass, who was then replaced by Jamie Cooper after the recording of Animals in 2008, and Matt Bennington on drums, replaced by Chris Collis, brother of guitarist Tim, in 2006. In their earlier careers, bassist Jamie Cooper had worked as a graphic designer, drummer Chris Collis had been a librarian at the University of Oxford, guitarist Tim Collis was a primary school teacher, and lead vocalist Stuart Smith worked building websites for a publisher. On May 11, 2011, it was announced on This Town Needs Guns website that lead singer Stuart Smith would be leaving the band to start a family, and that he would be replaced by Pennine singer and guitarist Henry Tremaine. Bassist Jamie Cooper also left the band in late 2011 to focus on a career in graphic design. Tremaine has since taken over on bass guitar duties, converting the band into a power trio, as you were quick to point out. Those counting skills are paying off. On September 14th, 2012, the first track from the second album, 13.0.0.0.0, that's a math rock name if there ever was one, entitled Cat Fantastic, was released on digital streaming platforms, with the album proper releasing on January 22nd of 2013. With the release of 13.0.0.0.0.0, the band announced that they would be calling themselves TTNG. They stated that the name was ironic because guns are hardly present in their hometown of Oxford and the UK in general. As the band became more known around the world, the name was no longer clearly ironic. The band also felt uncomfortable with their name due to the issues of gun violence and mass shootings worldwide, and in particular in the United States, and wanted to distance themselves from those associations. Their third album, Disappointment Island, was released in July 2016. In 2017, the whole band was arrested in Hong Kong during an immigration raid on the final show of their tour. You make it through your whole tour, you're going on for your last show, and the whole band gets arrested. Is fucking wild. In July 2018, the band announced a 10-year anniversary tour of Animals, in which Smith would be returning to the band to play with them for the first time in 7 years. In October of that year, an acoustic version of the album entitled Animals Acoustic was released. This track that I had you check out today, If I Sit Still, Maybe I'll Get Out of Here, features on the band's 2008 self-titled EP. Over at Album of the Year, that EP rests at an aggregate score of 89 out of 100 based on 149 user reviews. While over at Sputnik Music, it sits at an aggregate score of 3.9 out of 5, earning the site's excellent designation based on 368 reviews. So, these lyrics. I'm sorry for the things I've done, and what I did to you is up there, number one. So sweaty of palm and tongue tied tight, we'll sit here and talk late into the night. Yesteryear still rings in my ear like buttons and pins. This mess we're in dissolves in time. Yesteryear still rings in my ear like buttons and pins. This mess we're in dissolves in time. I know that this time is quite different from when we first met. The years haven't been kind, worn down by regret. So take hope there's still enough of what made this young man left. All that once was is not quite gone yet. 'Cause we are old friends, you and I. Many a time sat silent at my side. And if this is to be our last goodbye, I'll take with me a part of you that never dies. Yesteryear still rings in my ear, like buttons and pins. This mess we're in dissolves in time. Yesteryear still rings in my ear, like buttons and pins. This mess we're in dissolves in time. I know that this time is quite different from when we first met. The years haven't been kind, worn down by regret. So take hope there's still enough of what made this young man left. All that once was is not quite gone yet. I know that this time is quite different from when we first met. The years haven't been kind, worn down by regret. So take hope there's still enough of what made this young man left. All that once was is not quite gone yet. Yeah, the title and the lyrics kind of capture this sense of restless anxiety and the paradox of trying to escape an overwhelming situation by kind of not doing anything. There's this paralysis by analysis. The title reflects the feeling of being like trapped in your own head, and it describes the anxious belief that if you stop overthinking or acting rashly, you might finally find peace or escape whatever mental loop that you're in. Musically and lyrically, it does deal with returning to a familiar place, or in this case, I think a relationship, not necessarily for comfort or even kind of trying to rekindle anything, but out of the pressure or resignation. So it highlights this kind of tension of wanting to flee and realizing that running away won't solve the underlying problem. So it's kind of, and it's bittersweet from the idea that it's probably aimed at this individual's first love, obviously a relationship that is dissolved, but a connection, I think, nonetheless, that still persists, at least from the narrator's perspective, right? And how he's addressing this other individual. So, really, I think beautiful lyrics. I don't know if they rival the guitar work in this, but they are sweet in their sentiment. So yeah, really good band. I'd love to check out more from them on the channel, or have you check out more from them on the channel, since you seem to be keen on what you heard.
Yeah, I'll be up for that.
Great. Awesome. So excellent, John. I'm really glad that you liked it. Guys out there in the listening audience, if you're familiar with TTNG, please shout out any tracks by them that you think John should check out in the future. Also, please like, share, and or subscribe if you haven't done any or all of those things. We really do appreciate it. And hopefully John and I will catch all y'all in growing numbers on the next episode of the Audiophiles. We'll see you later, guys.